Well, here's another story that was sent to me with this story. Sometimes parents can offer some good advice and insight, especially if you take decisive action. Hello, everyone. I am 27 and my wife is 28. It pains me to share my story. But I want to bring my story to light to show you how love can blind you. My wife and I started dating in high school. High school sweethearts, did the prom thing, and then got married shortly after we graduated. I realize now getting married so young was a mistake. She didn't wait long to start cheating on me. I joined the army and was stationed overseas while my wife went to college to become a nurse. We kept in touch as much as possible, but it was hard being apart. We both agreed that when I got back from my deployment, we would start trying for a family. Everything was going great. We were so in love until I noticed when I tried to call her at our designated chat times, she wasn't available when I would ask her about it. She would always have a reasonable explanation. So I didn't think too much about it. I just figured she was with her friends, but it still bothered me. I came home on leave and we decided to take a trip to the beach. When we were at the beach, I noticed she wasn't as affectionate as I remember. 2 weeks go by and I had to go back to my post overseas, but I was due to come back home for good because my enlistment was up. I wasn't going to make the military a career. But in that time frame, our designated chat times were sporadic at best. And when we did chat, she seemed preoccupied and couldn't put her phone down. She was texting someone while we were chatting on this particular occasion. I asked who she was texting and she said it was one of her girlfriends, but I noticed she was blushing, which made me suspicious. The next day I decided to call her best friend to see if she could shed some light on the situation. And that's when I found out my wife was cheating on me. Her friend was so apologetic and she said my wife had been seeing this other guy for a few months. She also said that my wife was seeing this guy right before we were married. Then she said she wanted to tell me, but my wife begged her not to. Then she said I don't talk to her anymore. I stopped hanging out with her because of what she was doing. After talking to her friend for a few more minutes, I told her not to say anything about our conversation and she promised me she wouldn't. Fast forward a week and we missed 2 designated chat events from overseas, mostly because I didn't initiate them. At this point, I had nothing to say to her a week before I was to come home. I told my parents what has transpired and my mom told me to wait until I get home so we could talk about it as a family. But my dad was livid. He wanted to confront her and tell her off. I eventually agreed with my mom and told my dad. I didn't want to waste time talking to her. I told my parents. I haven't told my wife what date I was coming home. My wife works at the hospital and as far as I know she is working at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. shift. So I figured I would fly in the early morning and drive to our house, which is only about an hour away from the airport. I would go to the house, get my things and move back in with my parents until I can get on my feet. We don't own the house and our release was up in just a few weeks. I told my parents my plan and my dad said he would be at the airport to pick me up, take me to the house and get my things. I fly home and everything goes as planned. I get my things and move back in with my parents. I avoid my wife like the plague. I don't want anything to do with her. I told my parents I need to call a lawyer and get the divorce process started. My parents agreed and they were heartbroken that she could cheat on me so easily. And after just 1 year, my parents agreed to help with retaining the attorney. We reside in the great state of California. And I was told that California is not kind to men in divorce. So I was bracing for the worst. I met with the attorney and he told me since we don't own any property and we don't have any kids, the divorce should be pretty quick and simple and I should be able to get it done in about 6 months. The attorney also said California is a no-fault divorce state, meaning it doesn't matter who cheated, the divorce will be granted. I was relieved to hear that, and I told my parents what the attorney said. While this is all taking place, I make a call to my wife's friend, the one that does not hang out with her anymore, and told her I have filed for divorce and I was just curious about what my wife has been up to. She told me my wife is still seeing this guy, and rumor has it that she might be pregnant with this child. I asked, how did she know this? And she said that she still talks to some of her friends that hang out with her. I told my parents what I found out, and they were happy that I started the divorce process quickly, as I did. 3 weeks go by and my ex-wife is served with divorce papers. I gave her the option of an uncontested divorce, which means she doesn't have to show up in court and she can sign the papers and it will be done. She refused, and I was told by my attorney that I would have to go to court, and since she is refusing to sign the papers, it will take a little longer, but it's still going to be pretty quick. But here comes the twist: the guy she was seeing dumped her and doesn't want anything to do with her or the unborn child. She has also been trying to reach out to her old friend, but she has ignored all of her attempts to contact her. My soon-to-be ex-wife is now all alone. She has no friends, and the guy she was seeing has bailed when I divulged all of this to my parents. The first thing my mom and dad told me was, please do not take her back. Please. I told them I have no intention of taking her back. I just feel bad for her. She is all alone. And has no one. My dad said she made her bed, now she has to lay in it. My mom agreed with my dad, as the divorce hearing nears. My ex-wife has been calling and texting nonstop. I have ignored all of her attempts, but I am tempted to see what she has to say. I confer with my parents and ask them what would they do if they were in my shoes, and what would they do if their significant other wanted to talk to them. My mom said I wouldn't talk to them if my mind is made up. They can't tell me anything that will make me change my mind. My dad said the same thing, but he also said you have to do what you think is right for you. After listening to my parents, it just made sense. There was nothing for me to say to her. I filed for divorce and wanted to get out of the marriage before any more damage was done. Right before the divorce hearing, my soon-to-be ex-wife's old friend reached out to me and said, if I needed her to testify on my behalf, she would be available. I thanked her for that and told her if I needed her, I would let her know at the divorce hearing. My soon-to-be ex-wife's attorney asked for a continuance because she wanted to try and work things out with me. The judge denied it and said that was not a compelling reason to continue this, and that we will proceed with the divorce hearing. We were only married a year. We didn't own anything together. We had separate bank accounts and we were living apart. All things my attorney brought up, and he also said that his client had information that my soon-to-be ex-wife was cheating, impossibly pregnant by another man. Needless to say, the judge granted the divorce and signed the papers. I was happy with the outcome. My ex-wife showed up pregnant and I wanted out and fast. I felt bad for her, but I knew it was the best thing for me and I had to do what was best for me. As I left the courtroom, my soon-to-be ex-wife's old friend was waiting for me. She told me that she would have been there sooner, but she left work as soon as she could. I told her I didn't need her and thanked her for showing up. She said, I know, but I wanted to be here for you. I thanked her again and we went our separate ways. A few weeks later, I get a text from my ex-wife asking me to meet her for coffee. I didn't respond. But as time went on, she didn't give up. I eventually get a job working in a power company, making good money, and I start getting back on my feet. putting money away so I can get my own place. I come home from work and my ex-wife is sitting on my parents' doorstep. When I asked her what she is doing there, she said she wanted to talk. I told her I had nothing to say to her and that she needed to leave. She started crying and said she was sorry for everything and begged me to forgive her. I said, "Look, I forgive you, but we are not getting back together. So you are wasting your time. Please leave." She tried to hug me, but I stepped back and put my hands up. She eventually left and I haven't seen or heard from her since. I'm glad I decided to divorce her when I did, because a few weeks after she left, I found out that